you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something you own. It's too late to repair what we made. What can I do? Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the...
G'day everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Anna and this is You Got Me in Stitches. I am coming in at you today with Sewatop, and Sewatop was created by the wonderful Claire from Penguin and Pear. So she had created Sewatop and she's now in the second season of this, and vloggers participate in creating a top of their choice, and it runs through every day of August. So then you have 31 days of vloggers, and yeah, kind of like a little video hop. And I have also recently discovered some new vloggers as well, and it's wonderful seeing everybody's makes of their tops so far. Yesterday's video came in with the wonderful Kim from Dorothy's Daughter, and tomorrow is Megan from Megan Handmade. So if you'd like to go and check those ladies out and see the tops that they have created, and also there is a list so you can go through and see everybody that has participated in Sewatop Challenge. Today is my turn, and what did I make? So it is a McCalls pattern and it's relatively new, and it's M7956, and there are a few variations there, different sleeves, quite a cropped version there, and you're never gonna guess what view I made, guys. Now come on, that is so difficult, isn't it? View C, yeah, line out on the back there. Here I am attempting to trace out with the help of my furry friend Lucy. Starting to cut out some of the traced pattern. I had placed the pattern on my body and saw that the bust dart needed to be lowered. Here you can see it after I had lowered it on the paper. Here I am placing my pattern on my mock-up, which is inexpensive thrifted fabric. Now all the pieces have been cut out. Now for the sewing. First up, I am stitching the bust darts. And now for the most pressing part of all, the pressing. Here you can see the facing pieces. I have pinned them ready to stitch. I had stitched the facing pieces at the shoulder seams and placed it on the main garment, and they are now currently pinned. Here is the front and back pieces as well as the facing, all stitched together and pressed. Now moving on to the sleeves. I ran a regular stitch length around the arm side area to help with the easing later on. The sleeves has now been stitched at the seams and pressed. Righto, so this is mock-up number 1, and just trying out the fit, and it's a little bit tight, especially across the back when I pull my arms, and also around the front area, and there's a bit of pulling. Righto, so next I'm now going to make the amendments to the tissue paper. Once I was happy with the measurements of the tissue fitting, I transferred everything to brown paper. All adjustments made and transferred, so the brown paper pattern pieces are good to go. Now I'm starting to lay out all the pattern pieces on the thrifted fabric for the second mock-up. Righto, so this is mock-up number 2. You can see clearly the fitting is a lot more comfortable. The bust dart adjustment and everything I think is pretty much in the correct place, and yeah, overall happy with it. Righto guys, this is mock-up number 1, and I use 100% cotton fabric that was in my fabric collection, and it's thrifted fabric, so it's really inexpensive. So starting off with the sleeve there, you have to ease those in, which I'm not that great at, and then I did run some stitches along where it suggested to place the little gathers. There is also the facing that I added in there, and then this is the front bust darts, and then under there is this extra piece of fabric. Just flipped it round to the back so you guys can see the back of the mock-up there, and also the shaping of both the back darts that it has. Because if you just saw from the steels on the first mock-up, it was a little bit tight, and also I needed to make some tweaks to the shoulders, so I've marked out to correct the shoulders there, and also I have drawn a line down so I know to change on the pattern, just to shave a little increment off the arm side. Also here I was thinking maybe of doing some smocking instead of gathering. It looks a bit ruggedy this now because I took the facing off and I actually used it for the main finished in the toile de jour. I also added 2 inches to the length. I lowered both the bust darts, you may have already seen that on the stills, and I at this point have still left the extra piece of fabric that crosses over there, kind of overlaps. It's only when I go to the toile de jour fabric that I then decide to take it out. You'll see from the stills me wearing this second mock-up with the changes that I made, and it's definitely more comfortable. And also I believe this pattern, don't quote me, it possibly didn't have any ease. I did check the tissue paper, it didn't appear to have any ease, so obviously you have to factor that in as well. So in the end I decided to make kind of a 12 on the top, coming in at a 10 at the waist and then 12 at the hip. Now we have the nail biting moment, laying out my pattern pieces on this beautiful toile de jour fabric, which I only have a certain amount of. All my pieces are now cut out and ready to stitch up. First up, I stitched both the back darts, followed by sewing both the front bust darts, then sewing the shoulder seams together, pinning the facing to the main body. Here I am stitching the facing. Here I have prepared both the sleeves, folded up a double fold on the hem and stitched and serged the seams. Pinned and pressed and ready to sew. stitching the double fold of both of the sleeves with a regular stitch length. I have now installed the sleeves into the arm side first time. Yay! Preparing my bias binding. I think I'm going to play a little bit of Russian roulette with this little bit of bias binding. Here you can see that I'm actually playing chicken with this bias binding. Did she have enough or not? Yippee! Yes, I did have enough, and it's now fully installed to the hem. Now moving on to preparing the buttonholes. Ooh, nail biting! Adding a little bit of fray check to each of the buttonhole area. Success! Stitching on these buttons that I had repurposed from a previous garment. You can see 2 of the 6 buttons all installed successfully. Here is a close-up of one of the buttons. You can see that it has a little bit of a set-in look. All the insides were serged throughout for that clean finish. Here on the corner of the neckline I just ran a couple of extra stitches for extra stability. Here we go guys, this is my finished make, and this fabric is my absolute all-time favourite fabric ever in the universe, in the cosmos, everywhere. It's just absolutely stunning. So starting off with the sleeves, I decided in the end to just do a couple of little gathers there, and as I previously said, I omitted doing the little gather to create that kind of little ruffle effect. I just left it plain. I have double folded there, ran a regular stitch length, and I think that works really well. Here we have the bust darts. Thankfully it's not too intrusive and it hasn't broken up the image there, so that's worked really well there. Lovely square neckline, which I like that, and may have already seen the still. I just ran a couple of little stitches there just in the corner because it was pulling just a teeny amount, and just to hold it, just a couple of little stitches just on both the corners there. And then I used the 100% cotton fabric from the second mock-up and then styled it here and serged the raw edges. Then I wanted to use these contrast buttons, and I used 6 of them, and I think they work really well. And then I bias bound the hem. It does need another press actually. Overall I am happy with the finish. It's clean, tidy. There are the 2 back darts to add that shaping, and again it's not too intrusive and it hasn't distorted the picture kind of print there. I absolutely love Twilight fabric, and I do like this blue. I do prefer the colourway. You can get black and reds and yellows in Twilight, but I prefer the blue. This is slightly darker blue. I have recently purchased, of course, some fabric that I eventually found that was affordable because it is quite expensive. I'll talk about that, but it's a slightly lighter blue than these. Starting off with the facing, So I opted to use the facing from the second mock-up. Thankfully it fitted all okay, and it's kind of, if you like, a little bit of recycling there, and it works well. And also I didn't want to waste the Twilight fabric, but also I didn't have enough of that fabric to cut out, and because it's a really awkward shape, you can imagine how much fabric this does take up. But again, you could have this particular piece cut in 2 pieces. I serged throughout all the raw edges, clean around the arm side there, coming down to the bust. That's clean finish there, and to make that point really sharp, I just lower my stitch length just as I come to that point. Clean finish on the double fold sleeve hem, also on the main hem with that bias binding. A quick view of the inside of the back as well. You can see those darts a little clearer now, but overall clean, finished, tidy make, and it's lovely to wear, and it has really good shaping. Okay guys, so just to recap, the fabric was a 100% cotton fabric, a soft finishing fabric, mid-weight. I had it in my fabric collection for quite a while, and it was store-bought originally. I had approximately about 1 yard left, because quite a few years ago, probably about 8, maybe even 10 years ago now, I'd actually made a little cushion out of it, hence why I didn't have as much fabric to place these pattern pieces out, so I had to kind of strategically work around that, and that's also why there's not much pattern matching going on there. The thread that I used to stitch is a cotton thread, and it's by Gutterman. Throughout the make I used just a regular stitch length. The only time that I altered that is when I did the bust darts, because as I come into the finer point I then lower my stitch length, so then each little stitch goes down in smaller increments towards that bust point. The facing that I used inside was 100% cotton, light to midway, and that also had been in my fabric collection for a little while. Now the pattern did call for inner facing, but because of the rigidity of both the fabrics working together, I omitted using inner facing, so there's no inner facing in the garment at all. The bias binding, that was 100% cotton, and I purchased it from my friend's little sewing store. So the pattern itself has both bust darts and also darts at the back, and it does create a really lovely shaping. Also the view that I decided to make, I also omitted making the gathering around the sleeve. I decided not to do that, although I did test it out on my mock-up. I don't know, I just decided that I didn't want to do that. I think it was because when I then double folded the end of the hem on the sleeves, I was perhaps just thinking maybe just a little bit of extra bulk. The pattern instructions, very clear, concise, and good step by step, and I think it's a good walkthrough. And I also like patterns that are clear and good to understand, and the pattern itself, to be fair, isn't that difficult to construct, so maybe a confident beginner would be happy to try this pattern out. The biggest change to the front of the top was where the front piece kind of overlaps, so there's 2 pieces of fabric, although it's all one pattern piece. I kind of thought when I was going through the process, and because I had limited Twilight fabric, I thought, I wonder if it would actually work okay if I actually cut away some of the extra fabric, because underneath, although that overlay, you would have one button and then obviously the functional buttons all are down that detailed front, and I thought it was a little bit of a waste. And I thought, to be fair, when you construct that top, it's not really doing anything. And also with the movement and everything like that, if you've got that one button underneath it, I don't know if it would actually create a little bit of pooling. What do you think? If you remember just going back to the stills with me doing the mock-up, there was a little bit of pooling there, and that was even with the second mock-up that I had made. So again, by omitting it, maybe it actually created a better shape, but who knows. If I make another one and I use that extra fabric, then perhaps, because at the moment I can only judge on what I have made with my finished top, as opposed to had I have kept the pattern complete and not taken out that extra fabric. But again, we're all different, and that's what I wanted to give a go. And like I said, with the limited fabric to get everything out, because I did want to have sleeves on it, even though I changed the sleeves up a little bit. Now guys, for disaster! Dun dun dun! Yes! You are not going to believe it, unless eagle-eyed sewists among you have noticed. Yes! There was an absolutely gargantuan, a massive boo-boo. Absolutely terrible. Yes, a fundamental, biggest, largest boo-boo. And I don't know how it happened. I just actually feel it's like a rookie error, and I'm in no way a rookie at sewing, even though sometimes I look at my makes and I think, oh my god, like, how can I produce that? And I'm sure some of you guys look at some of my makes and think, ick. It's just terrible. But anyway, I will show you, flip the camera back around and show you this huge, massive disaster. And it only suddenly came to me when I was thinking of hand stitching the buttons, and then just before I put them on, I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Anyway, let's get on with it. What did I do? What was so terrible? What was so wrong? Righto guys, this is the point where I tell about the disaster. Have you figured it out? Yeah, so it is the front here. It's like, complete and utter disaster. Yeah, I want from a better word. You can imagine the curse words when I realised what I did. But to be fair, it looks okay from a distance, I guess. But if you remember from the pattern, this main piece is actually supposed to overlap there, and so this part, if you like, would be on the inside, and this is where I took away the chunk of fabric. That is not the issue. The issue is when I created my buttonholes, I did it on this part, and this part is supposed to be inside, and this main part is supposed to be outside. So I'll undo the buttons and then you can see what I mean. And I'm really pleased with my buttonholes, but this part is the part that goes in the inside, and this part would have overlapped. So if I come out a little bit more, that is supposed to be the way it would have hung. But unfortunately, absolute flaming galah, I was absolutely devastated when I realised what I did. and it was only when I came to stitch the buttons on. This now obviously has to go behind there, and then that comes over, but it is what it is, I'm afraid. So that is my huge boo-boo. I just wanted to thank Claire for organising and arranging Sewatop challenge. It's absolutely fantastic. Really proud to be a part of it, and also discovering new vloggers. So righto guys, so that is my top. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. It was a great fun, great make, even with the disaster, but sometimes we have a happy disaster and it still works, it's still functionable. So, and I really like the top. Okay guys, so I will see you on Sunday. Fantastic week. Thank you.